into our topic of the week. So this is something we actually didn't cover one story, but they're making a Top Gun 2, and we just covered the news on Alien Covenant, and it kind of got me and Adam thinking, like, how, like, can these movies become successful? Like, what, like, whenever you have a long wait between a follow up to a movie, not necessarily a sequel, but a follow up to it, like, can you really, like, can it be successful? Like, will Top Gun 2 be successful? Alien Covenant is the first movie that's a standalone Alien movie that has the title of Alien since 1997's Alien Resurrection. So how's that going to do? And there's other examples too, like Terminator 2, The Phantom Menace, Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, Scream 4, Clerks 2, Godfather 3. There's a ton of movies that have done this. So, like, basically the question we want to ask is the long wait between movie follow-ups. If they end up failing, why did they fail in the first place? If they end up becoming successful, like, why were they successful? Did the wait have anything to do with it? Like, what's up with that? And so, yeah, that's kind of like what our topic is for this week. I don't know how to start this, dude, so I'll just give an example of a movie that kicked major fucking ass when it came out. And I guess we could take it from there. But, dude, Terminator 2. Like, The Terminator, the first movie, which was a fucking film noir, almost horror, sci-fi action movie, came out in 1984, and it was a pretty good success. It kind of had like a bit of a B-movie vibe to it, but it was a huge success. It did very well. It kind of jump-started James Cameron and Arnold Schwarzenegger's careers and shit. And then Terminator 2 came out in 1991, and this is a big 84 to 91. That would never happen now. That's a big gap in between. And Terminator 2, like, kicked ass, man. That movie, like, tore open the door and was just like, I told you I'd be back, and just, like, fucking owned everything. It was, like, hardcore, one of the most impressive movies ever. And it even had a different feel to it. It was an action movie, and the Terminator was the good guy now, and you had this liquid metal guy and all this shit. And who's to say, like, what the hell was it that made that successful? Maybe it was the hype around it, the marketing, But then you have things like, like Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. That movie, did well financially, was not well received by people. Everyone thought, like, fucking Shia LaBeouf swinging with monkeys, nuking the fridge. Like, what the fuck's going on here? Like, it was kind of a weird follow-up to Last Crusade, which Last Crusade was a fucking excellent movie. It's actually my favorite Indiana Jones movie. So, dude, I've talked a bunch. What's your take on, like, these movie follow-ups that have, like, long waits between, the last one that came out and stuff like that?
Yeah, it's a weird one because it's different from just being sequel following up within like the next 2 or 3 years. Like when it's a long and sporadic gap between certain films, you kind of have to question, what is there even a time to return to this movie, or what is the kind of feel behind it? I mean, it's not necessarily the fact that only successful directors have good returns to the franchise, because James Cameron did have a good return to Terminator, but Wes Craven did it with Scream 4, which is kind of an example of where it is really hard to kind of adjust it. It's kind of like when I always raise eyebrows, like when they say, "Oh, we're going to make a Ghostbusters film in 2015," I'm like, is there really an audience?
Yeah,
but I'm not even saying, like, there is an audience in the sense that, yeah, there's the old nostalgic crew, but does it target a new audience? Can it adapt to a new cinema, new kind of, like, screen? Because it's just that kind of jokey thing they have about almost, like, everything. Like, with when we played Until Dawn, is that thing between Ashley and her boyfriend. Ashley and her friend, who also has a crush on her. And she's like, "Did you see that ghost go past?" And she's like, "What were you doing on fucking Twitter?" Saying hashtag, "Oh, I'm not even looking at her." Like, that is the kind of, like, almost the modern meme of kind of like how you talk about things, because it's just like kind of like, it's kind of what Wes Craven did right about Scream, but also did wrong as well, where he took it down that path of this is social media and etc. etc. It doesn't have to be that kind of, like, obvious, but it is that big kind of factor of what it is now. Like, we've changed miles away, and you kind of approach this. I can't imagine Coppola being like, "I want to make a Godfather Part 4 in 2050," and be like, "Right, okay."
With the subtitle still Godfathering. Godfather 4, still Godfathering. Like, what? Like, what does that mean exactly?
It does work in some. It does work in some senses. I mean, like, The Godfather 3 is an example of, like, the time helping it. because I think like the entire point is that Michael Corleone might be old in that film, and like it leads into that kind of like idea that he's still in the Corleone family and everything else. Again, another example, a modern day example, a very recent one that's going to come up. We can't really talk about that much, but it's Star Wars, The Force Awakens.
Oh
Like
yeah,
that 30-year gap we talked about last week in the podcast, where like that entire point where this is the first time it feels like 30 years has truly passed
yeah,
from a film, like because it was that kind of thing, like it just felt like time really stood still almost between the 6 films. Like there
yeah.
really wasn't that big leaps and bounds between certain things happening, but this is the first time where it feels like right now we're at point B
And
from point A.
even
We've truly jumped that distance.
Yeah, and even dude, like if you see like the last Star Wars movie that came out was live action film was Revenge of the Sith in 2005. And there's a lot of prequel hate. Like there's a lot of people that really fucking hate the prequels, and one of the you've seen the way The Force Awakens has been promoted. They're look at all the shit they're tackling without directly pointing fingers at the prequels. They're like everything is practical for the most part. I think they literally said every creature and character in the movie is practical except for Lupita Nyong''s character Maz and Andy Serkis's character Supreme Leader Snoke. Those are the only two characters that are entirely CGI, that are like the Jar Jars of the movie, not Jar Jar in character, Jar Jar in effects or whatever. Everything else is not CGI. It's practical, and like
Yeah,
that's their subtle marketing of saying, look, we're not doing what the prequel people hate, but we're also adding some prequel shit in it too by having these two characters. So like, if that movie becomes successful again, was it marketing? Was it them taking considerations from like what some people complain about, but also scratching the back of other people, like you and I that don't really hate the prequels as much as a lot of people other do. Yeah, dude, it's true. I mean, Ghostbusters. You bring up a good. I totally forgot about Ghostbusters. Ghostbusters. I mean, what's gonna happen? Are they gonna fucking take a selfie of a ghost before they catch it? Like I could see that happening and just rolling my eyes. And you brought up a good point. Like, was Ghostbusters more of an '80s thing, and it won't really fit the world of the 2010s, the modern age. And we're gonna have to wait and see. That's really up in the air. That could really go either way, right? Like it really could end up being a stinker or something good. So, I think
yeah.
another.
I think
Yeah, no, sorry, go ahead.
no. I think there's obviously some profit to be seen in some of these films. I think like
Hmm.
obviously like people try and reboot certain franchises or even try and remake certain films, and it just fails catastrophically. Like it's just really catastrophic, like how bad it is when they do it.
Yeah,
But
like Batman
it's
Begins.
just
That movie,
yeah,
Batman Begins. I think it's pretty obvious. The only like Batman and Robin, right, came out in 1997. Batman Begins came out 8 years later in 2005. I'm pretty sure the only reason they did that big gap was so that people can forget like shit like chill, hey Batman, hey the cold shoulder. They wanted people to forget about the Bat credit card and like shit like that, so that they could start fresh. Sometimes studios have to wait just to get it out of people's heads, right? Like that's another thing because people are like, "Oh God, Batman Begins. What is he gonna fucking like shave with a batarang, like in the teenage years?"
yeah.
So yeah,
Oh
that's
yeah,
another example. Even with reboots and remakes and shit like that.
hmm um, yeah, definitely. I think like even with that, you have to kind of be very cautious about because you want to take things into new direction. Necessarily like adding new directors and everything else. I just think it's very hard to kind of like do that big jump because now kind of the structures are different. Those kind of things like Coppola could drop The Godfather Part 3 and not necessarily do it because of all the stuff that happened and then eventually come back to it. But I think like now it's more about I think we always joke about when you sign down like to a free movie deal before the movies even come out.
Yeah,
Like
I think that's absurd. Like that's how it works nowadays.
yeah, I think that's kind of like an example where it's eliminated that entire point of like where you need to like, do this wait and like possibly it coming back. Clerks is one of those ones that's like a strange example because it does kind of do it well, but it's also a little bit kind of like
It
you kind of
didn't.
like roll your you know
Oh, sorry. I was gonna say like it didn't reach the. I mean, Clerks, the original, is an amazing movie because here's a guy that made a low budget movie and became like super successful. I mean, Kevin Smith made Clerks, and that was the definition of look, man, you can make a movie if you want to make one. Just like be smart about how you do it. and it was like a big accomplishment in independent film. Clerks 2, not as much. Clerks 2 was kind of like, let's go back and revisit. I know it was, I mean, it made its money back and then some. It had a very low budget, so it didn't really, I think it had like a $4 million budget or something. Very low budget, but it made all its money back and more, a ton more. So, it was successful in its own world. It's still a fun movie, but like nowhere near as epic as, Clerks 1, right?
Oh yeah, definitely, definitely.
But
Um,
another recent example, Jurassic World. That was and dude, actually, fuck, something you brought up a second ago. How it's absurd that they arrange all these sequels, or what was it that the dudes at Terminator Genesis said, where it's like, oh well, yeah, that doesn't get explained because in the next one, we're gonna explain it. And it's like, dude, you don't know if you're gonna make another movie. Like, you don't know that. Maybe you don't. Maybe you don't make a
it's
sixth
it's more
Terminator.
like it's might make like an unwarranted sequel, like almost just make the quick assumption that you deserve to have a sequel when,
Yeah,
based on the fact like a lot of old movies were judged on, critical reception and also profit, and like then you can make a sequel.
exactly.
It's almost like when you look at when George Lucas tied down the rights to the Star Wars films, like he firmly wanted rights to the films and the sequels over money.
Right.
And, it shows like his kind of judgment call was brilliant in that decision, like as a business point of view and as a director. He got creative control over his properties completely.
Yeah.
He didn't just sell them off.
And the irony
So it's
is,
like it's kind of like that. Go on, sorry.
sorry, shit. I feel bad. I think I keep interrupting you. I'm sorry. No, I was gonna
No, no,
say
of course
that.
not.
No, I was gonna say that. And the ironic thing with what you just said, Star Wars still was a standalone movie. If you see the original Star Wars movie, it tells a story. Like it has a clear beginning,
Yeah,
middle, and end. The only real loop that they need to close is Vader. He's kind of like fuck, and he's just leaving. Like what the fuck am I gonna do now?
yeah.
But
But even but
yeah,
even you can have an assumption that he pretty much like he has some kind of like ending or something towards that kind of thing because it's not completely like it's on a remote cliffhanger completely.
right.
It still gives a justified warrant that this is the end of the story, even if that happens. It's a very cliche like good versus evil movie that.
Hmm.
But most modern day movies don't do that. They don't have a beginning, middle, and end now. They just have a beginning, a middle, and then a possible end, and they tee themselves up to be another thing. I think unnecessarily now, I think even if you have a great idea, a unique idea, it just sporadically becomes multiple films over the years because it's just one of those things where they see the profit in it, see what it's successful, and they just pounce on it, any studio.
Yeah. No, definitely. I think I mean even like another example of what you're talking about, Jurassic World. I don't know if you've seen
Yeah.
have you seen the movie? I can't remember.
I did, yeah, I watched it.
Okay. Not to spoil anything for those of you who haven't seen it, I don't want to like spoil anything, but the character Dr. Henry Wu, if you remember, his story is not really, again, not to spoil, but his story kind of doesn't really have a resolution at the end of the movie. And literally, like Colin Trevorrow was like, "Yeah, like we kind of like save that for the sequels." And I'm like, "But what? Like, look, the movie made like $1 billion, so it's definitely getting a sequel. They're already working on it. I think it comes out in like 2017. But it's like, but what if it didn't do well? What if it stunk like Jurassic Park 3?" And we're left with like this cliffhanger. I mean, it's kind of ironic if you think about it, because Jurassic Park, the first movie, that's shaving cream. If you don't count the Telltale game, we still don't know what happened to that shaving cream, right? The one that Dennis Nedry steals,
Yeah. I
right?
As a kid, I always assumed that would be the sequel. Like, I
That
remember watching that
yeah,
film as a kid. I was like, I always thought that was going to be the sequel because they did it intentionally. The shot of like how it falls down specifically and how it gets like thing. But you have to remember, it only has a cooling thing in there for a certain amount of hours, as that guy explains
right.
to him.
Yeah.
Whilst he's having thing, he's like, what's his name now? What's
Oh,
that guy's name?
Dotson. We got Dotson here. That guy.
Yeah, Dotson, yeah. You got Dotson here. It's like, no one cares.
Yeah, no one cares. You look like a spy. Take that head off. What is it at the end? Don't get cheap on me, Dotson.
Yeah, yeah.
Such a great
That's what
line.
it's like. Your company catches up on 4 years of research and it like puts down the bell. Don't get cheap on me, dancing.
Oh man, we should just do a podcast where we just quote awesome movie quotes for like 2 hours. That'd be so fucking great.
Yeah.
But yeah, like
It's
that's
Green Bay.
everyone's a suspect. I am your father. But what's it called? Yeah, it's true though, dude. Like that's the kind of like the world we live in that you set up, and now the Terminator people are freaking. The Jurassic World people are like, oh, we're fine. We made like $1 billion. We're gonna make that fucking fifth Jurassic Park movie, and it's gonna be awesome. You'll see. Like they're set in stone. The Terminator people, they're like, what if they're like blaming Emilia Clarke and all this other shit? And it's like, don't blame Emilia Clarke. Blame yourselves, you assholes. Like you wrote a really fucked up, convoluted movie that was terrible. I mean, look at what they made the Terminator do in that movie. Go back and watch it, and you're like, they really made the Terminator do that? Like, oh god, why? So I guess it really. I think for me, I guess what I'm going to take away from this whole topic is I think that even if there is like a fucking super long wait between movie follow-ups, I think the success in them comes from how they're treated. I'll give you an example. The Hulk is a perfect example. The Incredible Hulk movie came out. It did well. Like it made its money back and more, like it wasn't a bomb. It made, I think it was like a $200 million budget. It made like $600 million. But Iron Man 1 made $800 million and it had a $150 million budget. So it was a cheaper movie and it made way more. So Marvel kind of rolled with that and they noticed that now, okay, Hulk works well with others. You put Hulk in the Avengers, that movie made like $1 billion. You put Hulk here, and now there's I think they confirmed it. Hulk is going to be in the third Thor movie. He's going to be Thor's sidekick in that movie. So they're handling it well. Like Marvel is like, well, shit, it's not really a follow-up technically, but we're following that character, right? And it's like, well, look, we're using him successfully. We're putting him in things. His single movie didn't really do that well, but look, if we put him with a group of people, and now they're testing the water. Let's see if we put him with one dude, with Thor. How does that do? So I think really at the end of the day, it's how you handle the property, how you handle it. Batman Begins was an excellent follow-up to Batman and Robin because it was grounded to reality. It was very different from the last movie. They looked at what people made fun of, like the fucking back credit card, like all that shit, and they took it out and they made it more grounded. Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, not as successful because look at Last Crusade and how serious it takes itself, and look at Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. It's not, they're kind of having a little bit too much fun there, and some people argue Jurassic World. Jurassic World is so fucking polarized because I actually like the movie a lot. I had a couple of problems, but for the most part, I think it's a really decent follow-up. Way better than Jurassic Park 3. But some people, throw it in with Jurassic Park 3. So, you're going to get mixed reviews, too, with these movies. But I think at the end of the day, it's just how you handle it, how smart you are. When they made that fucking Amazing Spider-Man movie and they made it dark, they had no idea what they were doing. And now they're rebooting it a second time, So, it's really just at the bottom of the end of the day, how do you handle the property? Are you going to attack it? Is Top Gun 2 going to be a good movie? Or are they just going to be nostalgia level through the roof? Look, here's Val Kilmer, here's Tom Cruise, together again, but older, that kind of thing.
That kind of film, you have to take into account how old the actors are.
Yeah,
and everything about it. Again, it's 2015. It's not 1980s. It's not 1980s/90s. We've come a long, long way. Different themes, different social, political, economic, all kind of different factors equate to it. Just like how you think about something. Certain period pieces are made for certain periods because they resonate in that. Adapting something from even for example, Hannibal, adapting it from the big screen to the small screen TV was kind of a huge task in itself because it is a different role. It's been defined by an iconic actor in the past. It had great storytelling. It had a very kind of an agenda about it where it's can you even adapt something like this into short 30-minute burst stories that you can do on TV? So you do have to take that into account. I think with Indiana Jones is one of those ones where I think that it was just kind of that thing where, again, it was a Wes Craven syndrome where you have that kind of involving Indiana Jones 2015. Not 2015, I'm just using 2015 as an example,
right.
Jumping into the current the most recent last 10 years and try and getting it to fit in there, and they kind of do it a bit too much where it's here's Harrison Ford, he looks aged, he doesn't even take center role, they push him out just like they did with Wesley Snipes in Blade 3 where they push him out and put in Shia LaBeouf's character and kind of plug it, and you kind of keep raising eyebrows. I didn't like Jurassic World at all. I just thought it was another boring adaptation. It just had, with that, I think they took more into account of Chris Pratt's star appeal.
Mm-hmm.
use that to propel the film forward, and it was a great way of just kind of telling you it's not a terrible film, but it's just like it's one of those like almost like cartoonish kind of films where I'm like, yeah, this happens and like blah blah, and, like it hits too many, like for me it hits too many like it breaks too many conventions where I'm like looking at it like that wouldn't happen, that wouldn't happen, like this is something you like, a Scream kind of film would mock just for doing it, something like that.
Right.
Well, hey, I'm not against it. We'll see what happens. I mean, like another series again is like Rocky. Rocky's like jumped years and years and years across it. Now even has a spin-off film of Apollo coming out soon.
Creed, yeah.
Not Creed. Sorry, not Apollo. Creed. It's called.
Right. So that's going to be interesting too, because I mean, what is it? 2006 was the last time we got that was Rocky Balboa, the sixth movie.
Yeah.
They should have just called it Rocky 6, but whatever. And like now,
just called it Rocky.
Yeah, or what is it, Rambo?
Or Balboa.
Yeah, just Balboa. That'll be the next one.
First blood, first hunt, first Rambo.
First punch.
Rambo goes to Manhattan.
Why
Rambo
not?
X.
At this point, like, get out of my way. I'm in Manhattan. Like, that's my Stallone.
Really tough. It.
But yeah, so I think that's pretty much all we could say on the subject. It is always curious to see how these long-awaited or long, between follow-ups actually end up doing. I'm going to be very curious to see how Top Gun 2 does, how Alien Covenant does, how Force Awakens does, which is like next month. Yeah, it's going to be really exciting to see how all these movies end up being. I know a Clerks 3 is coming out soon. I think Kevin actually, he's making Mallrats, the sequel to Mallrats. That's another one. Like, I can't wait to see how that movie turns out, because that's another thing I forgot to add, actually. Like, it's also the place of the director. Like, obviously Ridley Scott in the 70s is not the same Ridley Scott in the year 2015. Same thing with Kevin Smith, not the same Kevin Smith from the 90s. He's, a lot of shit has happened in his life, and that affects you as an artist, as a director, as a writer, and it shows in your works. You compare Prometheus to Alien, and you're like, Alien's a way better movie for so many different reasons. And that it could be that also, like how the climate has changed.
Oh, definitely.
But all right, great. I think that was a great topic, great discussion. But all right, we're gonna close it out there. Closing the bar for now. Last call, no more last calls. But that's it for this week's episode, guys. Don't forget to follow the Gamer Headline Show on Twitter at TGH Show, and to like our official Facebook page, which is called the Gamer Headline Show, for up-to-date episodes from Gamer Headlines' official podcast. Also, the Gamer Headline Show can be found on Podbean, Stitcher, iTunes, YouTube, and, of course, as always, right here at GamerHeadlines.com. Thanks for tuning in, guys, and we will see you next week.
See you later.